Spanning from Manitowoc, Wisconsin, eastwards to Ludington, Michigan, and south to Benton Harbor, Michigan, the Lake Michigan Triangle has a long history of unusual events and strange disappearances. These unusual events and disappearances involve everything from planes and ships to missing people and UFO sightings. Over the centuries, thousands of ships have been thrashed, broken up, or sank to the bottom of Lake Michigan. Of those, there are hundreds of cases that still remain unexplained. In today's episode, we'll explore some of the more unusual events to occur in the Lake Michigan Triangle. The first strange incident recorded within the Lake Michigan Triangle occurred in 1679. Le Griffin, one of the largest sailing vessels of its day, set out on its maiden voyage to find a northwest passage to China and Japan. All was reportedly well until it reached the edge of the Lake Michigan Triangle, where it seemingly vanished without a trace. No wreckage of the ship nor trace of the crew has ever been found. Another strange event took place when, in 1883, aboard a wooden tugboat dubbed the Mary McLean, the crew witnessed huge blocks of ice falling from the sky. The ice reportedly fell for around 30 minutes, causing dents in the tug's wooden surfaces. The crew managed to save large chunks of the ice in the galley icebox as some form of proof when they recounted the strange ordeal back in the harbor. The weirdest part of this occurrence was that the ice was reportedly falling from a clear, cloudless sky. And on the night of April the 28th in 1937, Captain George R. Donner was navigating a ship through the icy waters of Lake Michigan. Captain Donner retired to his cabin to rest as it had been a long day of maneuvering the ship through the ice. Approximately 3 hours later, one of the crew members went to Captain Donner's cabin to alert him that they were nearing the port. After knocking for some time, the crew member became alarmed and broke the cabin door, as the door had been locked from the inside. Upon entering the captain's cabin, he was shocked to find that it was completely empty. There were no clues left behind as to the captain's whereabouts. This remains one of the strangest disappearances in the Lake Michigan Triangle, as the cabin was locked from the inside, and there was no logical explanation for how or why the captain had vanished. In another strange case, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, carrying 58 passengers aboard, crashed into Lake Michigan in 1950. The approximate area of the crash was well inside the Lake Michigan Triangle. At the time, this was the deadliest commercial airliner accident in American history. Prior to the plane crashing, it disappeared from radar and lost all communication with the ground. To this day, not a single piece of wreckage from Flight 2501 has been found, and the reason behind the crash has never been determined. Of note, 2 hours after the disappearance of Flight 2501, 2 police officers reported that they spotted a strange red light hovering over Lake Michigan, which disappeared after 10 minutes. This sighting has led to speculation that a UFO played some part in the crash of Flight 2501. One of the most bizarre disappearances recorded in the area was when, in the winter of 1978, a young man named Stephen Kubacki decided to take a ski trip along the coastline of Lake Michigan. The trip seemed to be going along as planned until Stephen did not return home as scheduled. Authorities were notified and a large search was launched shortly afterwards. Initially, the only items that could be found were Stephen's skis and poles on the frozen shore of the lake, along with a set of footprints that stopped abruptly at the very edge of the lake. Adding to the strangeness of the mystery, his backpack appeared the very next day, right in the center of an area that had already been searched extensively. No more clues were found, leading authorities, friends, and family alike to conclude that Stephen had likely perished in the wilderness or in the lake itself. Incredibly, 15 months later, on May 5th, 1979, Stephen appeared at his parents' doorstep, dazed and confused, but in otherwise good health. Despite repeated questioning about the disappearance, Stephen could only remember hazy bits and pieces of what had happened to him. He recalled losing consciousness while hiking along Lake Michigan and then awakening in a town called Pittsfield, a full 700 miles from where he had been hiking and skiing. Stranger yet, upon awakening, he noticed that he was wearing clothing that he did not recognize, carrying a bag that he didn't recognize, the bag being filled with maps that he did not remember purchasing. After these initial comments, Stephen refused to comment further upon his disappearance and subsequent reappearance. On March 17, 2004, Christopher Halax, an experienced outdoorsman, told friends and family that he was heading up to his remote cabin near the Tequamanon Falls State Park. Chris never arrived at his cabin as he was supposed to make contact with friends and family upon getting into the location. His family became concerned and reported him missing, and the Chippewa County Sheriff's Department went out to begin the search for him. Searchers were able to find Chris's snowshoe tracks near the Tequamanon River and followed them for some time before they inexplicably stopped on the edge of a wooded swampland. Where Chris went after that is anybody's guess, as no further tracks could be found in the area. Also of note, searchers did find one spent shell casing from his gun, but could find no further evidence pointing it to why Chris had fired his gun. He has not been seen since. In the summer of 2008, there occurred another strange disappearance in the same area where Mr. Halax had vanished. Joe Cluley, along with his dog Chip, were hiking along the Tequamanon River on a well-marked trail. While on the trail, Joe called his wife to let her know that he would be back home by 9 p.m. that night, but he never arrived. His wife called area police soon after, and when they arrived, they found Joe's van unlocked and the keys left inside, something his wife said that he would never do. This also suggested to investigators that Joe had possibly made it back to his vehicle before disappearing. A huge search effort was put into place, scouring 10,000 acres around, but no sign of the man or the dog was found. A few weeks later, on August 1st, Joe's dog Chip appeared at the family cabin. He was slightly underweight but in good health. Joe Cluley has never been found. In one of the most recent cases of a disappearance within the Triangle, in 2013, 2-year-old Amber Rose Smith disappeared from her front yard in Newaygo County, Michigan. Her father had been watching her play with the family's 2 dogs when he reportedly stepped inside for a minute to use the restroom. When he returned to the front porch, he realized that Amber was nowhere to be seen and did not respond to him, calling out to her a number of times. The dogs, however, appeared from the forest not long after. The father immediately called authorities, and an intensive search including hundreds of volunteers and emergency workers was launched. No clues as to her whereabouts could be found on that first day. The following day, little Amber was found 2 miles from her home, standing in the middle of a road that had been previously searched. As searchers approached her, they noted that she was staring off into space and seemed to be in a state of shock. Authorities were incredulous that the little 2-year-old had survived the night, as the overnight temperatures had been frigid and Amber was not dressed to endure prolonged exposure to the cold. An interesting wrinkle regarding Lake Michigan is that, within a shallow section of the Lake Michigan Triangle, archaeologists have recently discovered an eerie underwater Stonehenge-like structure, the exact location of which remains unknown as research is ongoing. Also found at the site is a large boulder featuring the image of a mastodon, which went extinct approximately 10,000 years ago. It has been suggested that sites like the Lake Michigan Triangle and the more well-known Bermuda Triangle are subject to some sort of natural electromagnetic disturbance that can have odd, as of yet undiscovered effects upon machines and people. There are others who have theorized that some sort of a time portal or vortex can sometimes open up in these areas when the conditions are right. Perhaps the two phenomena are interrelated in some way. It remains to be seen if we'll ever manage a deeper and more meaningful understanding of strange phenomena such as these. Thank you for joining me on this cursory exploration of the Lake Michigan Triangle. Please join me next time as we continue to explore conspiracies, the unexplained, high strangeness, and more.